Yeah, we are here for episode 3 of the Thundercats recap. We are doing 103, The Berbils, which aired on September 11th of 1985. David is here with me. So this is a very important episode because we set up more of the plot, we set up more characters, and we meet the Berbils.
We meet some new friends and get a good food supply.
Right, this is the beginning of everything.
Beginning of me gaining weight again. Thank you, Berbils, with your candy fruit.
Now, if you're wondering what candy fruit is, you will learn. For anyone who out there who doesn't know what candy fruit is. This episode starts with Panthro succeeds in constructing a brand new thunder tank by utilizing only the equipment that he salvaged from the wreck of their crashed flagship, which is amazing. He is proudly showing it off to the other Thundercats. A sudden, unexpected hailstorm breaks out, raining stones and boulders on them. While the Thundercats seek shelter inside the flagship, Panthro chooses to remain with his baby, the Thunder Tank. The hail covers the entire flagship with stones, but using the Thunder Tank, Panthro is able to dig out the ship. Gotta give it up to Panthro.
Was that sent by Mumm-Ra?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was, I believe.
Terrible.
I mean, and Third Earth, as we again are seeing that Third Earth is treacherous. Panthro somehow succeeds in building a Thunder Tank with salvaged parts. We don't know how long after the last episode aired that they were able to build this, but Panthro is doing it up.
And it's nice and shiny too and really put together. It doesn't look like a hoopty. You know, it doesn't look like
Not at all. Not at all. For salvage parts?
Yeah, it doesn't look like he got it for $500 off of wreckedcars.com or something.
And he managed to make it shaped like a cat face too, so he's... Damn, Panthro doing it for them. In the meantime, Lion-O and Snarf, who are scouting the nearby forest, encounter a rhino creature who turns out to be rather harmless. But Snarf does try to protect Lion-O from it because he is Lion-O's nursemaid. As they continue to travel deeper into the forest, Lion-O falls into a giant hole in the ground. Snarf tries desperately to pull him out, but before he can succeed, he and Lion-O are both captured by what appear to be robotic bears. The bears then lead the two captives to their village, where they are introduced them to their leader, Berbils. He turns out to be very friendly, and after untying Lion-O and Snarf, he tells them about his race. He tells them that he and his fellow bears are known as the Berbils, and they came to Third Earth from their planet Bear. So again, another refugees from a planet. We don't know why they left Bear to come to Third Earth, but they're here.
You know, maybe they should have had an origin story. Did they ever have an origin story for the Berbils?
I don't think so. I think they just came.
I think it's funny that they're like furry, but they're also robotic. Because they're like, are they combination? Are they living? They're living creatures, but they're also robotic. It's almost like the Borg from Star Trek.
Yes.
Like biological or
organic and
robotic. They're both organic and robotic. So interest, very sweet. They show them, right? They show them around their village and they show them the fields of all the candy fruit and all the...
The Thundercats Wikipedia says that Bear is a small planet located many galactics away from Third Earth. It is the home planet of the robotic bears Berbils. The gentle and peace-loving Berbils lived happily on their planet for a long time, but their increasing population quickly led to overcrowding on their small planet. In order to solve this problem, some groups of Berbils left the planet in spaceships to search for new homes. Wow! Two groups of Berbils ended up arriving on Third Earth. The first one comprised of Berbils, his wife Berbils, and many Berbils. And they settled in a small area where they built their homes and grew their fruit. Their settlement is known as the Berbil Village. So the Berbils also all sound alike. So they have this very like robotic, and they make like high-pitched sounds.
Yeah, that would be right.
They all look the same, like I said. Honestly, there's the one female bear has a flower in her hair, so
she's the Smurfette of the village.
Honestly, yeah, and she's like a pinkish.
Yeah, something like that.
Like a pinkish color. Berbils.
She is Smurfette to the hundreds of Smurfs.
She's gentle, kind, and hardworking, and she generally tends to domestic duties and being a wonderful host to her guests. This is her official synopsis.
You can also reach her at Universal Appeal 2020.
Yes, it's Okay, so back to the summary. So they meet the Robears, and at first they're nervous that they're going to attack them because they do pull Snarf and Lion-O out of this hole with these ropes. So they lasso them and they pull them up, so they are bound their arms. And Robert Bill pulls out a knife, and they think that he's going to attack them, but he cuts them free.
He's like, I brought my trusty pocket knife.
It's a very small dagger.
From the Burble Village.
Berbils are pacifists, honestly. They offer the candy fruit, which they grow, to Lion-O and Snarf. And Snarf says that he is going to try it first because he's, I guess, the royal taste tester. He doesn't want Lion-O to be poisoned. So he tries it first, and he is loving this candy fruit. So it's fruit that grows on trees, but it tastes like candy?
Some of it looks like candy. One of them looked like a candy cane.
Candy cane,
but
right.
Some of the other fruit looks like a fig, but like a white fig.
So there's all different types of it, but it's delicious.
Delicious, yes.
While they're showing Snarf around the village with Lion-O, an alarm is sounded, which scatters everybody. Robert Bill explains that the alarm signifies that the Troggles, I hope I'm saying that right, are about to attack the village.
I don't think they'll be offended.
You know what they looked like? They
Dogs.
looked like the Moblins from Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda almost. They had like those Moblin faces, like the dog face.
Like, they look like dogs. They look like not a Sharpei.
Like bulldog.
They have bulldog faces. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. They are bulldog-like creatures, regularly plunder their village for their Burble fruit. So Lion-O is getting very angry like this because the Berbils' only defense are like spitballs that they're trying to deter them by shooting out these non-pointed like rubber bullets through straws.
It's like bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Literally. And Lion-O's like so angry. He's like, "What are you doing? Why don't you attack them? Why are you letting them raid their village?" And the Berbils are saying, "This always happens. They will get the fruit." And he's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he's like, "We're gentle. We don't want to hurt them." So Lion-O says he can't take it any longer. We're seeing another power that the Sword of Omens does. He creates a round disc-like shield that just scares them away.
Yeah, they go to attack and then they get propelled back because it's like a force field.
Again, the Sword of Omens does everything that you need it to do. So
it's a Swiss Army knife. It's a Swiss Army knife of magical swords.
So while they learned that the Berbils are sympathetic to the Troggles because they are only coming to take the fruit because there are giants that are blocking the trees that these bulldog creatures would normally eat. So to be able for them to eat, they have to bring these giants candy fruit to do a trade. So these giants block the trees that the Troggles eat, and the only way is for them to bring them candy fruit, and then they'll give them these leaves to eat. So the giants are not very happy about this. At the same time, now that they are good friends with the Thundercats because Lion-O helped protect them, the Berbils are unaware that Mumm-Ra has been quietly observing all of this from his black pyramid. He's furious that the Thundercats—
Alexa has been listening this whole time. Siri and Alexa have been watching and listening this whole time.
Honestly, Mumm-Ra has a cauldron and he is constantly watching. That's his form of entertainment. He watches what goes on.
Do you think he ever watches them in the bathroom?
I mean,
he's watched them sleeping. Anyway, that's a whole other story. He's like, "That's why I call you the Cub Bear."
Cub. The giants are angry and decide to attack the Burble village themselves. Realizing that the giants would be too much for him to handle alone, Lion-O summons the other Thundercats who arrive in the Thunder Tank and help him defeat mighty beings. Mumm-Ra now is pissed off that they have an endless supply of food.
He's like, "Damn it, I couldn't starve them now."
That's honestly, he's like, "Oh, now they have food." So the Thundercats befriend the Berbils, and Mumm-Ra transforms into a swarm of locusts and attacks the Burble village. So they go right from these giants attacking to the Berbils saying, I think they say plague. I think they say something like that, like plague. Swarm. And locusts attack, and the Berbils have torches, and they're trying to get these evil locusts away. Meanwhile, Mumm-Ra's magic form of locust, and it turns into a gigantic, massive locust into one being. Lion-O leaps into the giant locusts and forces it to fly away from the village, saving the Berbils.
However,
Yes.
he jumps on the back of this locust, and the locust goes over a semi-inactive volcano and
Yes.
turns back into the multiple locusts, and Lion-O falls down.
Which is a
into
great idea of
volcano.
Mumm-Ra to let him
it's
go
perfect.
fall into the volcano.
It's perfect. And then as Lion-O is falling, Lion-O's going, the sword, because he can't reach it. And then Jaga appears and says, call to it, it will obey you.
So again, Obi-Wan Kenobi comes to Luke Skywalker and says to call the sword, call for the lightsaber.
Yeah, exactly. He says, Sword of Omens, come to my hand. I, Lion-O, Lord of the Thundercats, command. He has to really grandstand. I would have just said, sword, here, like Charmed. I would have been like, Paige, just call sword. But I guess he needed to go through all that grandstand.
But this is something that comes up again in future episodes. So like, to call the Sword of Omens, Lion-O will from now on say, Sword of Omens, come to my hand. I, Lion-O, Lord of the Thundercats, command it.
Is this also the episode that shows that Lion-O can use the Sword of Omens to get sight beyond sight? Is that in this episode, the first
Yes,
time?
it is. Yes, perfect. Great trivia. So when he is introduced to the Berbils earlier, the sword does go off with the alert.
Dun, dun,
And
dun, dun,
the
dun,
Berbils
dun.
are nervous, and he's like, don't be afraid, this is the Sword of Omens, this is a warning, and therefore he uses sight beyond sight for the first time, which is when Lion-O places the Sword of Omens in front of his eyes, and
The sword curves up. And
yes,
you can see between the two
eyepieces, and the center is the Eye of Thundera, so he's able to see, which is, I think, is a great power to have in the sword. You can see future events, basically, with the Sword of Omen.
The sword says, Molly girl, you in danger. What
Right?
movie is
I mean,
that from?
it's like literally usually like right before it happens, so he gets it, but at least the sixth sense of the sword does usually always help. So basically, the Sword of Omens is amazing.
And that's why everybody wants it.
But only Lion-O can wield it.
That's-
So we
that's an
also...
issue. That's an issue. Do you ever feel like Mumm-Ra is also like a Karen? Not in my neighborhood. You're letting cats into the neighborhood?
Well,
Like,
yes, he definitely...
they're on a huge planet. What does it matter if a race of cat people, it's like a handful of cat people that won't even be able to reproduce probably, it lands on your planet and you're like millions and millions of miles away? Do I know what's going on in Spain, for example, right now? I have no idea unless I Google it. Like,
Well, you know what it is?
Worried about because he's evil.
I think, could it be because he senses that it's a force of good?
He's an
I'm
evil
thinking
Karen.
that's the only...
He's an evil Karen. Not in my neighborhood.
You will not build that cat's lair.
That is not part of the Pyramid HOA. The Black
That's right, the
Pyramid
Home Office
HOA.
system. I'm sorry, the Berbils cannot build your cat's lair
I
without
told
the proper
you.
permits.
I told you not to plant candy fruit, Karen. I told you to put palm trees in.
Mumm-Ra the Karen. Oh my god. So yes, Jaga's spirit does materialize and advises Lion-O to call for the Sword of Omens. He complies and the sword flies to Lion-O and he flies out of the volcano because the Sword of Omens will also allow him to fly.
It gets him. It actually gets enlarged, like a large. Like
Yes,
a large-
it goes to its full mast because the sword does grow. We never mentioned that, I don't believe, in previous episodes.
I'm just gonna say a man thought of that. That's all I got to say about it.
So the Sword of Omens is in a more compact form when it's not being used. It actually fits on Lion-O's claw shield on his arm.
It's like a dagger. It's pretty cool that it does because it's easier to carry that way.
Yes, so it is a dagger form, and when when he says thunder, 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 the sword grows when thunder is said. So it gets to a larger form, usually about 3, goes to the longest, which is the 3rd thunder, and it becomes a full-on sword. But that sword almost glides with him. It's not flying per se, but I guess it will, as he's holding it, it kind of he can Mary Poppins out of things. He kind of glides out.
Well, also then a light shoots out of the center, the eye, and stabilizes him and places him down on the ground. So almost like a booster rocket, like on a think it kind of...
So again, the Sword of Omens is the most powerful sword of the 80s.
Yeah, I kind of think it beats He-Man's sword.
Maybe not She-Ra's, but He-Man's. I guess because She-Ra's, like we mentioned in the previous episodes, she could do sword to lasso, sword to shields. But Lion-O's got everything basically built into
all
that.
the stuff that Lion-O's sword does, and this is a whole nother conversation, everything that Lion-O's sword does is magic-based, where She-Ra can call for a shield, but it turns into an actual, like, metal shield. Lion-O can just spin it around and turn it into a magical, like, force field. So I guess they'd make beautiful children. Both of their swords would make beautiful children.
Wow, can you imagine the sword of protection and the sword of omens married together? The two glass eye pieces.
Beautiful children, beautiful.
So after this all happens, the Berbils went through with this episode. They got attacked by the bull-faced creatures. Then the giants came for them. Then directly right after that, Mumm-Ra's swarm of locusts came for them. But they're still up for helping the Thundercats. So that evening, the Berbils organize a huge feast for their new friends, the Thundercats.
Return of the Jedi Ewok Village celebration, much?
Totally. Robert Bill then notices that Tigra has blueprints for the cat's lair and that he and the other Berbils offer to help them construct it. The Thundercats accept the Berbils' kind offer with gratitude. So now we have Cat's Lair in motion. We have people that can actually help build Cat's Lair. The Berbils like to build. New friends.
Food supply, relationships, and now they become their unofficial protector. So they also have, besides survival, now they have a cause to fight for. Besides just living on Third Earth, they are the unofficial protectors of the Berbils, so they have something else to fight for.
So in this episode, the Berbils assist the Thundercats with constructing their fortress, this Cat's Lair, as we mentioned. This episode also marks the first time that Lion-O calls the Sword of Omens to his hands. This episode, again, also marks the first time that Jaga is depicted in a blue-gray color scheme. The previous episodes, Exodus and Holy Alliance, show him having the same color as his living form, only slightly transparent. The mutants are absent from this episode, and the episode also makes the debut of the Thundercats' most iconic vehicle, the Thunder Tank, that is very true. And for the first time, Mumm-Ra shows off his power to take the form of other creatures and beings when he transforms into the swarm of locusts. I also want to say that the official moral to this episode is Lion-O learns the value of friendship and the importance of cooperation. When groups have interests in common, joining together and sharing their talents and resources can best serve their welfare. Positive peer group relations are important for children. They provided opportunities to interact socially, express emotions, develop self-image, and solve problems. Lion-O does learn, to work together with other people. It does touch on the fact that he's very like, why aren't you doing anything? He could not understand that the Berbils were peaceful and they just let these other creatures attack them, which I could understand. He's saying, why aren't you doing anything? But it does teach him a lesson into maybe wait, figure out.
Hopefully in the future realize that just because his belief is a certain way, like I would have been the fight because I think it's ridiculous they would let them just attack them, but it also shows him that he has to respect other people's beliefs and he has to not be narrow-minded. Again, going back to a child or a young adult who typically is very self-centered and only can see one side of the coin, so to speak. This is also, again, where there's like character development here, which I think, again, speaks to why we also like these cartoons, because this is definitely character development. It's actually, as a child looking at it, you also see a different perspective. It actually teaches you, it does teach you a value or a moral, or to look at your own beliefs or your own way of thinking, or having patience, and you don't even realize it because it's a cartoon and you're watching it. Cartoons have formed. This is the reason why, the reason why I believe that people our age and even a little bit younger really have, again, maybe I'm overstepping, definitely have what appears to be a kind of a more of a moral compass than certain other people. And I don't even mean that in a horrible way, but like not as me centric as...
Yes, that's the difference between we grew up in this generation where these cartoons did have more morals, as opposed to, again, I don't want to badmouth the new Thundercats, but they are portrayed, again, it is canceled now, Thundercats Raw. It was more of a comedy series, but they do portray the heroes in modern cartoons, I feel like, as more of selfish and more
vapid, selfish, self-serving,
like they're very condescending. Yes, and that's what's cool about them. Like Chitara is like a know-it-all, like condescending, like diva in like the new one, and like they make fun of Tigra because he likes to read, and Lion-O is an idiot in the new Thundercats Roar, but. There's a difference between the characters that were just purely, they're good people, they make mistakes, we'll see in future episodes. We're building the world of Thundercats. Once we get past the first episodes where they're building their friendships, like David said, they're building their fortresses, they're building their vehicles. Once we get to a certain point, then the plot just expands so fully and we see the full world of Third Earth and all of its inhabitants.
Good, bad, and ugly.
And there are many of them.
Mm-hmm.
So next episode will be The Slaves of Castle Plundar. That will air the last Friday of next month. And we'll be back with all new episodes of the Thundercats Review. You can reach David at Universal Appeal 2020 and the Radical Retro Rewind Podcast at Radical Retro Podcast. Both all one word on Instagram. If you'd like to leave any comments or any questions for us to tackle on the show, please send us a message, leave us a voicemail.
Send us Mumm-Ra pictures.
Yeah, send us your best Mumm-Ra
fan art. I would love to, if anybody wants to
do Mumm-Ra as Karen. Mumm-Ra Karen.
Mumm-Ra Karens. That would be great. I would love to see that.
I'm picturing what, like, Mumm-Ra with a blonde, John and Kate +8 haircut. And maybe a red sweater as opposed to a red cloak.
And refusing to wear a mask when he goes into the Berbils village.
Mumm-Ra, you must wear a mask. I will not.
It is my right.
I will speak to Robert Berbils.
You don't have to wear a mask in the Black Pyramid.
And if anyone wants to follow along with us, Thundercats is streaming for free on the basic Hulu account.